Okay, I see Gina Cohn listed here as being present. And Gina, welcome. Welcome to you and welcome to everybody. Just a few announcements. Number one, and please pay heed to this. On Saturday, May 7th, which is next Saturday, this coming, I will be in New York City and then Atlanta. And on that Saturday, next week, my grandson is graduating from Georgia Tech on Saturday. There's just no way around it. So I have invited Rabbi Anthony Fratello to come back. Yeah, right.
He's wonderful.
You know that my problem with him is that people like him, and I would rather not invite him. But, you know, there is no choice. So Tony graciously, instantly accepted my invitation. So I will not be teaching next week, but much better, Anthony Fratello will, and you guys will, I think, love him as before. On the 14th, I'll be on with you, okay? So it was just the 7th. I wanted everyone to know, and I'm really sorry that I saw so many smiles when I said Anthony Fratello.
He's number 2.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Very gracious. Okay. Number 2. I just received a copy of Mara Fine's article that was published, the essay, the midrash that was published. And before we leave on Tuesday morning, I will circulate that to everybody in Chevra Torah so everyone can read it. And thank you, Mara. And I assume, Mara, that you're going to have a book signing and that you're going to have, you know, and good entertainment, fine wine. But you'll make those announcements later. May 5th, Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, 74th anniversary of the birth of Israel. That really works because I was 9 when Israel was born. That still works year after year. But the flip was I was only 80. I was 9, but I'm not 83 yet. Don't panic on that. So
you're a kid.
May 5th, yeah. Yom HaAtzmaut, what a great thing that's going to be. And you'll see all kinds of programs live streaming, and it's going to be wonderful. May 11th, I will be teaching current events. I cannot tell you what city I'm going to be in, but I will be teaching the current events class. And now in this world, it doesn't matter what city you're in. And May 19th is Lag BaOmer. May is really, really busy and with happy events. And that's cool. Okay, so we did May 7th, May 5th, May 11th, current events, May 19th, Lag BaOmer. And Cindy was just giving that. What is the hour count now, Cindy?
52.
52 hours until the birth, B'Shah Tovah, of your next grandchild. And you know, we'll be waiting to see the white smoke come up like that. What did Hababum Papus? Yeah, we got a pope. So you'll let us know and send love, and our prayers so much are with you and the family. It's exciting, it's happy, and just love. That's great. And Jim Ruxin, what is the story? Oh, but Cindy, you did want to mention that the high tea, do you want to give that announcement for everybody?
Well, it's a little late. I think Lynn is the only one coming from this group.
Okay.
And we're having a Mahjong tournament. There's still lots of openings, May 18th.
Okay, very, very good. And Rabbi Nanis has COVID.
No. Somebody from the B'nai Mitzvah service last week tested positive, and
Ah,
she was there.
ah,
So she's being overly cautious.
very good. Okay, super. Jim Ruxin, program.
Nothing tonight, but next week we're going to discuss a very fun movie. It's called Let Them All Talk. It's directed by Steven Soderbergh, who's a very bright film director working for a couple of decades. You may know him from Ocean's 11,
Sure.
but he has done serious films, and this is kind of in between the two. It's sort of a comedy. It's about three women who are getting together on a cruise, and they haven't seen each other for years, for decades. And the nephew of one of them, of Meryl Streep, attends. And it's all about the interrelationships of these people and their motivations for being there. Meryl Streep plays a very successful author. And one of her old friends is determined to find out if a character in her biggest hit book was modeled on her. It's really all about what do we mean to each other and what are the secrets we keep from each other. It's not very heavy, but it's a fascinating story with a surprising conclusion, and it's very well told. You'll love the performances. Candice Bergen plays the suspicious friend, and Diane Wiest plays the moderate in the group. And Lucas Hedges, the young man, plays the nephew. It's really a very fine movie, very well performed, a lot of fun.
Jim, what's
so
it
that
on?
is that. Let Them All Talk on HBO Max next Saturday night at 7:30.
Super. Now, thank you for that. I see Lorraine is on. Lorraine, are you able to speak with us?
Yeah, I'm here. It's my kids are not having swimming class today, so I was able to join you guys.
Okay. Now, Lorraine, did you have anything interesting happen in your life over the past week?
Yeah, actually, I had my bat mitzvah
Oh.
last Saturday. It was great. It was really good. And this little guy was there as well. So I'm here celebrating with all of you.
Okay, so we wanted to wish you a mazel tov, and that is just great. That's great. So, what happens next, Lorraine? Is it ordination or,
No. I'll continue enjoying my time with all of you.
Okay, but just in case, stay in touch.
For sure.
And that's great. Any other checking in things going on in your lives that you'd like to share with us? I know that Tamara has opened a bed and breakfast and has been having family rotate. Have you finally relaxed?
I've been relaxed all along. I have my beautiful granddaughters here, one from Austin and one from Israel, and they're relaxing in the other room.
That's terrific. And when will the family visits, which has been like for the past few weeks, when does that end?
I think in June.
Ah,
That's
okay.
a few people coming in.
Okay, that's great. By the way, that speaks very wisely about the beauty of having a very small home, but so that they can't all come. Now, anyone else have any other things they'd like to share? If not, we're going to move forward. Okay, I see Effie.
Yeah, one day this week when I was visiting Shulamit, some days she doesn't talk at all. And this one day I said, I love you. Do you love me? And she said, no. But then she gave me a great big smile. So she's still joking around.
Are you sure she's joking? Yeah.
No.
Okay, that's happy. That's a connection. Every precious connection. Okay, we're going to get started. I am going to be flipping, and just allow me to do this only out of the plout, because it's going to be when you can do it anywhere from the books you're using. We're going to start with chapter 16 of Leviticus, verse 14, 16, 14, and I'm going to read them because it's very, very brief. 16, 14, and here we find, as soon as I find 16, 14, Did you ever notice that the print here is getting smaller and smaller? He shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger over the cover, and sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. He shall then slaughter the goat of purgation, bringing in blood beyond the curtain, and do with its blood as he has done with the blood of the bull, sprinkling it and so forth. That's 16:14. That's 16:15. And in 16:18, he shall go out to the altar before Adonai and purge it. He shall take some of the blood of the bull and of the goat and apply it to by the horns of the altar, the rest of the blood, sprinkle on it 7 times, purify it, and so forth. Now we move to 18, 19. Now we go to 27. The bull of purgation offering and the goat of purgation offering, whose blood was brought in to purge the shrine, take it and do it and wash it and clean it. Okay, so that's 27. Is 17 verse 3. 17 verse 3. This is what Adonai has commanded. If anyone in the house of Israel slaughters an oxen, does so on Sunday, that brings it in before Adonai's tabernacle, blood guilt shall be imputed to the person having shed blood. The person will be cut off from the people. Just moving on from that, that's an interesting verse. 17:5, when it was 6, now 17:10. 17:10. And if anyone in the house of Israel, the strangers who reside among them, partake of any blood, I will set my face against the person who partakes of the blood. For the life of the flesh is in the blood. By the way, that's a really important statement. Verse 11, Ki nefesh habasar badam hi. The life of the flesh is in the blood. It is the blood as life that affects expiation. Ki hadamhu banefesh yechaper. You know the word yechaper because it's the same word as Kippur, right? Yechaper. It does the Yom Kippur thing, and it says it is blood as life that brings about kapara, that brings about forgiveness. And then 12, no person among you shall partake of blood, nor shall the stranger who resides among you partake of blood. And when it says partake of, the Hebrew reminds me of a rather interesting vampire story, because it says, lo yochal, blood. Partake in Hebrew is eat. The person doesn't eat blood, which is, I think, reasonable. Okay, 13, 14. Let's see. And if verse 13, if any Israelite or stranger resides among them hunts down an animal or bird that may be eaten, the person shall pour out its blood. Not only pour out the blood, a rare comment here in the Torah, and cover it with earth. This is not usual when it comes to talking about blood. Here it says, cover it with earth. I would like to turn, some of you may pick up, I think, a little bit of a story that's being told now. If we go, let's see if I can get this. Yeah, page 785. 785. There is a note in the text. I need a reader. It's under the section on page 785 in the new Plout, prohibition of blood. I'd like just to read a couple of those paragraphs. Do I have a reader? A reader, Donna? Thank you. Thank you. 785, prohibition of blood.
Leviticus 3:17 forbids the consumption of blood. 727 adds that the violation of this rule is to be punished by karet.
Yeah, I just want to point out, karet means exclusion or being cut off, or sometimes, Donna, thank you, elegantly expressed. It's, yeah, but it is being excluded from the people, and in certain legal circumstances, death through God. Karet is usually God who does this. Please go on.
Now, 1710 forward restates the prohibition and the penalty in the strongest terms. It offers an explanation of the law. The life principle, nephesh, rendered soul in earlier translations, is in the blood, or very probably is the blood. 38. It is a sin for a human being who is a nephesh, or is possessed of a nephesh, to consume the nephesh, even of beasts. Moreover, God has decreed that blood, as nephesh, shall be used on the altar to purge humankind of sin and impurity.
Beautiful. I need one more reader for the next paragraph, and that'll be it. One more reader. Do I have a reader? Do I have a reader? Okay, thank you, Roy.
I had to unmute. The ancients were just as much aware as we are that blood is indispensable for physical life. They thought of blood as a powerful and dangerous agent endowed with uncanny supernatural potencies. For many people have had taboos against seeing and touching blood, as well as against shedding or consuming it. Yet the biblical laws in the subject have no real parallel to the records of the ancient Near East. In Mesopotamia, the sacrifice was a presentation of food already prepared. There is nothing in the Babylonian ritual text comparable to the dashing of the blood of ordinary sacrifices on the altar, or to the special blood rites of the Hatat above chapters 134. Anyway, and there are only limited parallels in the Greco-Roman practice.
Okay, we're not going to go on and read the rest of it. By the way, it is interesting. The material is interesting. Where it says, for example, Orthodox law, moreover, requires that before meat is cooked, it must be soaked in water for a half hour, then salted and left standing for an hour, then washed again. Draw all the blood out of it. Okay? What do you make of this? This is, I think, a very important fundamental aspect of Jewish ritual. One of the things that strikes me is the comment that even though there are many parallels in Near Eastern, ancient Near Eastern literature, not on blood. Blood is much more important in the ritual of the Jewish people. What's going on here? What do you think? Any comments? How do you respond to it? It's important. Anybody, what do you think about this stuff? Nothing. Donna, what do you think? I do Donna, then Merle, after Donna.
Just the significance of life in the Jewish tradition, the focus on that as opposed to death. It's kind of interesting because if you're going to sprinkle blood on something, obviously you've caused death. So I don't know, seems to be a certain contradiction there.
You remember the Native American tradition, custom of apologizing to an animal that has been slaughtered for food, apologizing to the animal for having taken its life. Okay, Merle.
I was just gonna, I think it was what Ray read. I can kind of see where if blood, I can see for sure where blood can have impurities and cause problems. As a child, I had some really serious blood infections. I'm still alive to tell the story. But with the things that those blood infections caused, because my blood was basically impure, I could see how it plays on everything you can or can't do in life, which would also include what you can or can't do where your religion is concerned. I mean, you're very limited when your blood is having problems and you can't be places. You're very protected.
Okay, Howard?
So this is kind of jumping ahead 2,000 years, but the thing I mainly think about on this issue that you bring up has to do with people who believe things that aren't true. How the blood libel, how these things that people believe that aren't true seem to be especially powerful when they're the total opposite of reality. I mean, you're taking a people that almost uniquely abhors the idea of consuming blood and saying that they're all drinking the blood of, doing horrible things involving drinking blood. So I don't understand why that is, but it just more and more we are aware these days of this whole phenomenon of people that believe totally wacky things.
Totally wacky. That is a scientific way of describing a mild disagreement. I think, Howard, thank you for having raised the issue of blood libel, because it's a fascinating phenomenon. Blood libel involved charges against, allegations against members of the Jewish community who would allegedly snatch a Christian child prior to Passover, drain the child's blood, and use the blood to make matzah. And I know that egg matzah is not permitted during Passover. I think blood matzah probably would have been even more not acceptable. Interesting color. And there's another blood libel, which, God, is fascinating to me. In Catholic tradition, what is the host? What is the host in Catholic? What?
Wafer.
The body of Jesus.
The wafer, the body of Jesus. And there were times when pogroms were launched accusing Jews of having stabbed the wafer and therefore causing a loss of blood, because this is the body, in quotes, of Christ, and destroying the wafer is an attack on the body again. It just, so Howard, thank you. With all of these prohibitions in our Sedra this week, how do people go about saying, and Jews go out looking for blood of a kid to make matzah? I mean, it just, Howard.
And then after they make those allegations, they go home for a nice meal of blood pudding and
Okay,
then they go to church on Sunday and drink the blood of their God and so on. It's just unbelievable.
This is the body, this is the blood, and what is going on in communion. That is an interesting theological problem, which we're not going to get into right now. Okay, thank you. I see, well, let's see, Jim, this is Harry. Yes, so we'll do Jim and then Natalie, and we'll keep going.
Well, we just read how horribly revolting blood can be and how it's a fundamental, disgusting topic. And if you want to attack somebody, why not go to the same source in human revulsion and say the Jews are guilty of this? So instead of, the blood is not sacred when they say the Jews, kill children to make matzah. It's the point that it's a disgusting concept. So they're tarnishing the brand of Jews and Judaism with something that's fundamentally horrible to human beings, regardless of their religion.
Yeah, that
disinformation. Whatever they're doing to you, it's what they're doing, or saying you're doing, it's what they're doing themselves.
But please hold on to the concept that blood is also part of the purification process. You sprinkle, and when the priest is ordained, you put blood, I forget all the parts, on the earlobe, on the thumb, the toe, and this is part of the consecration process. So blood is the life. Blood is frightening. Blood consecrates and removes sin. All this is blood. Let's go on, please. Natalie, please.
So I think perhaps what they're saying here is that it's all right to use blood for sacrificial reasons and in order to have food. You're allowed to kill for food, and yet that, I think, is where the kosher laws come, where you have to drain the blood from the meat, and like my mother used to.
She
And
used to do
saying
that.
this is a bad thing, but I need the food to eat.
So did she salt and soak? Did she do that?
I don't know, she was in the kitchen there, how much she did, but I know that she put the salt and the water on the, when it was meat, steak or, yeah.
Fascinating. Thank you for that. I just know I love chopped liver. I'm even so bad that I'll eat vegetarian chopped liver made with eggplant, which is actually very good. But you don't dare go into an Orthodox home where they are serving liver for dinner, because what you are eating, the closest thing to what you're going to be eating is shoe leather. Because what is done to the liver, because it's a repository of blood, by the time they're done salting and then cooking, taste has nothing to do with it. Anyone else on blood? It's a fascinating topic. Anything else? Okay, I see Mara and Har both are competing, or is one going to speak?
I have a question. Everything we've read concerns the blood of animals. And it's interesting to me that the blood of humans would not be used in the same way. That is, if a person has died, why the blood of that person is not in some way used as a sacrifice in its holiness.
Interesting. The only, and I'm going to be open to other comments on this, the only thing I know, very limited topic, about blood and dying is that if a person is assaulted or in some, like in battle or even on the streets, and blood flows and the person dies from that blood flow, the clothing containing the blood is to be buried with the person.
Yeah.
That I know, but okay, I forgive me, Mara, that pretty much is the limit of what I know about blood and dying. But using blood sacrifice, I don't know. Tamara, is it? No. Okay. So we hit a wall there, but
it's just interesting to me that it isn't really addressed. And if blood is the life, and it seems an odd omission that part of the ritual after someone dies would not be to do this same kind of thing with the blood as an ultimate offering in honor of that person.
Tamara, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think that's true. It is very odd. And what's also odd is that if you have a cut and you bleed, that blood, there's nothing about that blood, so it's certain blood that has that. Menstruation blood has a unique status, and sacrifice blood that has been recognized as related to, given to God, has status. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really peculiar.
Okay, Mara, I see the text forming for your next midrash, and please reference the Chevra Torah as the place where it started. Merle?
Okay, I have two questions. One, is wine considered blood? I know in communion, there's a wine, I think, situation.
Yeah, but in communion, it isn't. The wine is transfigured. It becomes blood through the
Okay.
ritual. The wafer moves from being an alternate form of matzah to the blood of the Christ in the ritual of communion.
Got it. So
And
my other
by the
question,
way, when the priest administers communion, cracks a wafer, whatever would be involved, all the crumbs are swept up and cleaned. The ritual of communion only ends when the communion cup is cleaned and the wafer crumbs cleaned, because after the ritual, they are the body, they are the blood.
okay. So my next question,
Oh,
and it might go with what Tamara just said, is if humans with health issues, I mean, I draw blood from myself 5 times a day because of my diabetes. Does that say anything? I mean, I just throw away those strips. Does that say anything about my blood?
right. And it doesn't say anything except you have diabetes. Be careful. I worry about you.
Don't worry, I'm fine.
Okay. But in the example I gave, a person is assaulted or even hit by a car, whatever, God forbid, blood is on the clothing and the person dies directly from that accident. The blood on the clothing must be buried with the individual. But if
Got
the
it.
person, and there's a time limit, if the person lingers in the hospital and then dies, the clothing with the blood is not buried with the individual. The clothing that is buried is the immediate blood. But if that person doesn't die in the first short span of time, and forgive me, I don't have the exact short span of time, then that clothing with the blood is thrown out. Just like you could throw out the strips. The blood is the life force, but drops of blood in surgery is not, unless the person dies immediately from that process. Please, Howard.
So for human blood, it does say, do not stand by the blood of your neighbor.
I can't.
In terms of human blood, it does mention human blood. Do not stand by the blood of your neighbor.
Yeah, and the blood of your neighbor, in that case, I would say is more metaphor. It is saying, when your neighbor is assaulted to death, don't shut your eyes, get involved. So when it says the blood of your neighbor, in that case, blood is a metaphor for life. Don't stand idly by when the life of your neighbor is endangered. Ukraine. Okay, we're going to move. Oh, we're not going to move on. Donna.
I just wanted to say that this whole passage makes me very uncomfortable. It's kind of like if you were going to show this as an example of what Jewish religion is about to people who didn't know anything about Judaism, it would not be something I would be particularly proud of. I mean, it's sort of, I look at this and it seems like, wow, on the one hand, I realize, well, we're so sanitized and clean in, the modern day, and we don't want to deal with yucky stuff like blood. And this is typical for, ancient peoples and all that. But it just seems to me like that a lot of the Jewish faith is being kind of elevated from that barbarity. And this just seems very barbaric to me. That's all.
You'd rather be an Inca and eat the heart of your enemy. No.
Okay, so that's even more gross, but this is also gross. I don't know. That's just.
No, I certainly welcome the comment, and I don't have anything smart to say about what you said. Yeah, yeah. But we're dealing with an ancient tradition. Ray Kazarin.
Thank you. I don't have anything smart either to say about Donna's remark, but it engaged me, so I'll say something anyway and leave it for others to find the smarter thing to say. But it's a real problem. But Donna, you've seized on something that I think is really gnashing with probably most or all of us, and is especially acute in this moment. And it is certainly true of our tradition, but it is true of probably virtually every tradition and history. And that is the problem of, from our perspective of imperfect but often comfortable present day enlightenment, and our perception of ourselves as being enlightened in the present day, we find problems when we look back and reckon with our history, our actual history, our cultural history, and its development, and when we find the relics that persist in our history. And this is especially problematic when the way we perpetrate and continue to engage with our tradition and our scholarship and our practice is to encompass all of these texts that have been with us for centuries, with all of their contradictions, challenges, and I will say, and leave it for others to disagree with me, inherent problems. But the universality of this, I think we're seeing played out in a secular and socio-political way in our country right now, when we see the battles raging about school curricula and about how and whether to teach America's history as a country that enslaved people and substantially developed itself and its wealth and its industry on the backs of slave labor, and carried on for centuries as if that were okay. And the solution for many, I mean this in the nicest possible way, but they're effing wrong. The solution for many is to gag people who want to reckon with that history, but that history is our history. I believe the only thing that we can do that will actually work is to own, acknowledge that history and be able to say, that was then, we don't agree with that today, but that's what we did and we don't want to do that again. And that shouldn't really be such a big problem. But I think in all of human experience and all of human culture and all of human evolution of ideas and practice, we will find problems in the past ranging from embarrassing to hideous. And I believe the only real problem with those historical problems is not the fact that they exist, but what we do about the fact that we exist. And while this will not be on the brochure, welcome to our shul, when we walk into a temple, a real and necessary ongoing practice of Jewish ritual is going to have to be reckoning critically with our past. Thank you for putting up with that. That was long.
Ray, I never give like gold stars 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 5. But if I did give gold stars, you'd get a 5 from me. You know, there'd be disagreements, I'm sure. But relic, I enjoyed the word relic, and there's so much. Ladies and gentlemen, with my imperfect memory, I remember a time when, let's see, who was it? Yes, Fern Salker. Fern challenged me, and I never forget having been challenged. I never get over that. I'm very sensitive. To spend some time during Chevra Torah talking about what does this have to do with Reform Judaism? And Fern raised that question very strongly, and even to the point of saying, I think you ought to, each week when we're doing this, make a connection with Reform Judaism. So having made that comment 3 or 4 years ago, Fern, now I'm going to do it 7 years ago. Thanks. I'm going to do it. And to say, Ray, that's one of the things that Reform Judaism at its best is supposed to be doing. It doesn't deny attitudes toward women or primitive attitudes toward sacrifice or calling for the genocidal assault on other Canaanite countries and so forth. Our Sedra this week in chapter 18 calls for the death of men who practice homosexual sex. Okay? And I will not get involved in and I love to do this normally, a midrashic effort to take this attack calling for the death of homosexuals and find a way of making it nice. Rather, as a Reformed Jew, I feel totally comfortable in saying, I reject that, period. Okay? And it is one of the freedoms and intellectual obligations that being a Reformed Jew places upon us. Yes, there are things that we just read together which are very unpleasant, very unacceptable to us. I am not embarrassed by them because I understand from whence they arose, and I am perfectly capable of saying, we are not bound by that. We have moved beyond that. We reject that. Okay? And so now I've made my speech, Fern, 7 years too late, but I made my speech. It's okay. Made my speech and saying, folks, that's why we're here. That's one of the reasons. We are Reformed Jews. We are welcome to look at the past, accept it for being part of our past, not reject it, as wipe it out like it didn't happen. It did happen. And we are able to say that as Reformed Jews, our tradition evolves. And that includes moving past certain things. Okay, I'm going to take a quick comment from Larry and then move on.
Well, I think where this conversation has gone, hard to follow what just happened, but I'll try. I think where this conversation has gone reflects that blood is one of those things or concepts that has an inherent contradiction in it, right? I mean, it's the giver of life, but as Merle said at the beginning of this discussion, diseased blood is terribly scary. And I think I flash back when Merle mentioned that, I flashed back to the early years of the AIDS crisis, where a drop of blood in certain circumstances was absolutely terrifying. And I think trying to deal with those inherently and really stark contradictions is what sort of has motivated maybe the discussion that we've been having.
Thank you. We're sometimes even the most obscure things. That's why I wanted to go through all those blood references at the beginning. Yeah, Larry, I agree with you. And that's going to be a short sentence. Yes, period. I agree with you. I think that your observation is totally correct. It is when they say that after giving birth to a girl baby, female baby, a woman's period of impurity is longer than after having given birth to a male baby. And one of the reasons the rabbis offer is the one who produces blood, menstrual blood, has now given birth to another one who will produce menstrual blood and therefore needs more purification. Okay? And on the other hand, blood is sacred. On the other hand, the ritual of the circumcision, when the point, I shouldn't have said point, the purpose of the circumcision is the blood. So that even in the case of a convert, a male convert converting to Judaism who was already circumcised, what is it that must be done since that person is already circumcised?
I could drop a blood.
Right, Donna, the word is called, the phrase is called, do you remember?
Hatafat Hadam.
Hatafat dam, thank you. The drop of blood. A urologist with rabbi and whatever the ritual has to take a drop of blood. The drop of blood is entering the covenant. So what is it? Disgusting, disabling, impure, or the blood of the covenant? It's both. And yes, you're right, Larry. And thank you for offering that. I want to run on because, and I am running on. I want to point out on page 789, in case you want to memorize this when you speak to your children or grandchildren, these are the prohibited degrees of a male's relationship for marriage. So if your son or grandson is getting married to someone within the family, look at this, please, and you have a short, like a primer as to the people you can't marry. Then I want to turn to page 795. It is very important in the context of our text. Ezekiel, beyond having probably a few psychiatric issues, which we need not talk about now, he does at one point throw himself on the ground and become immobilized and, a little bit of interesting stuff. He has incredible visions, but also Ezekiel in Babylonia is attempting to reconfigure Judaism for an ultimate return to home to the land from which the people were exiled in 586-87. Now, Ezekiel then reads this, and it's attached to our Sedra. Word of God came to me. Now you, mortal, that is a very Ben Adam, that is so typically Ezekiel always calls himself Ben Adam. Mortal, son of man, are you ready to arraign the city of blood? City of blood is another blood example. It doesn't literally mean city of blood. It means disgusting place. Disgusting place. Okay, now, thus says the eternal God, city in whose midst blood is shed and time will come. Now look at the accusations that Ezekiel makes, which would explain for him why God allowed the destruction of the first temple and the kingdom of Judah. Idols are made. You are guilty for the blood of your own that you have shed. You are defiled by idols. Your time is up. Doom is coming, right? Therefore, I've made you a disgrace. Now, these are the things that you have done. Verse 6. You have leaders who are corrupt and lead you in the wrong way. I am not commenting on that comment. That's just what Ezekiel said. Leaders who mislead are the most vile things you can have. Now, you have defiled, okay. They have treated your fathers and mothers with contempt. If you treat your parents with contempt, you are vile. They have practiced extortion on strangers, oppressed widows and orphans, despised my holy things, profaned my Sabbath, slander, shedding blood. Again, people eat sacrifices on mountaintop. They do lewd things. they uncover their father's nakedness, which means they have sexual relations with people who are restricted to your father for sexual relations. They ravish menstruating women, a forbidden practice in Judaism to have sexual relations with a woman who is menstruating. And by the way, verse 10, you also shouldn't rape them for Christ's sake. Okay, now, I don't think I said that right. Verse 11, one man commits an abominable act with his neighbor's wife. Another obscenely defiles his daughter-in-law. A third has sex with his own sister, his father's daughter. By the way, do you hear father's daughter, not mother's daughter? That's a whole discussion, but that itself is interesting. People among you take bribes to shed blood. You take usurious interest, injured your neighbors through extortion, second time on extortion. So I clap my hand at the dishonest profits you have made and the bloodletting. When you make money through the committing of sin and cheating and stealing, you are vile. I didn't mention any name in particular. It's just vile. Will your heart remain steady, your hand firm, when the days come that I am going to deal with you and scatter you, and you are profaned, and so forth. The nice thing about this Haftorah is the very last verse. By the way, God says, after I've been through melting you guys down, I will gather you up into the midst of Jerusalem. Okay, so it's going to work out okay in the end, says God. Now, this incredible indictment by Ezekiel totally parallels the forbidden things mentioned in the Torah portion. Really, it's a beautiful example of how a Haftarah from the prophets is linked to the Torah portion, okay? So the theme, I don't know if you would love to have your grandchild at a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, read, oh, what did you read about? Oh, extortion, rape, blood. Oh, what a lovely thing you Jews do with 13-year-olds. Okay. Going to page 776 and moving quickly because there's way too much to do. Chapter 18, verse 1. 18, verse 1. Now, I know it's 776 on the Plow, 688 in the Women of Reformed Judaism commentary. I'm going to close with, even though there's so much more good to do. Oh, I have a section here later on which has Nachmanides say that sexual intercourse is contemptible except for the preservation of the human species. But I don't have time to talk about that with you today. So I'll just leave that sitting. 18:1. God says to Moses, tell the Israelites, I am the eternal your God. Don't copy the practices of the land of Egypt or the land of Canaan. My rules alone shall you observe. Faithfully follow my laws. I am God. You shall keep my laws and my rules, by the pursuit of which human beings shall live. I am the eternal. Verse 5. Is there a more important statement about what these laws are all about? Ushmartem et chokotai vet mishpatai. Keep my laws, my rules. Asher ya'aseh otam adam v'chai bahem. The rules by which people will observe and thus live. What is it that all of these rules in Acharei Mot, this Torah portion, what is it that God apparently is trying to do with these rules. What is God trying to achieve? It says it right here. It says it right here. I wait for a comment. What is God trying to achieve? Okay, I see Donna.
Well, God is saying these are new rules. This is not like what you saw and observed in Egypt. And this is the only way, by cutting yourself off from that and focusing on these rules I'm giving you here, that is the only way you will flourish and continue to live.
Thank you. Anyone else a comment on this? Okay, Natalie.
It definitely speaks out. You must be different. And this is the beginning of anti-Semitism. You are going to be different. Not only are you going to be different, but I think behind it all is you are going to be better. And I think right from this sentence, that's the way I see it. This is the beginning of you people are going to you are going to be different. You are going to be better in that you will have God's good laws. And that starts a whole terrible beginning of anti-Semitism, is the way I see it.
It's interesting where that ended. I didn't know that's where it would end.
That's how it is wherever we've been, all over the world, in every country. It is think you're better than us, you are different from us. That, I think, is the underlying basis of hatred. And it may not sound pretty, but that's the way I see it here.
Yeah, I'm reminded that when Pharaoh was talking about, things about the Jews, they're different. Remember Ahasuerus in the Purim story? There are people who worship differently, different. And God, you're probably sick of hearing this from me. So much of Jewish tradition is involved in separation. So much of it is involved in separation. When people look at the kosher laws, part of the kosher laws reflect on holiness toward animals and so forth. But part of the kosher laws are right there to make it harder for Jews to sit down at the local restaurant and eat with a non-Jewish person the food that's served in that restaurant. The fact that it does happen, and then you say, well, I don't like it because it doesn't allow me to, to go and have a BLT with my neighbor. That's the point. That's the point of it. And there's so much to talk about because it also stops you from eating with a lot of Jews. The way things work out. Natalie, okay, I'm going to give Fern and then I'm going to close. Fern?
I was on a plane once sitting next to a young lady from the South. And she, in the course of chatting, she said, she found out that I was Jewish. And she said to me, so are y'all still practicing sacrificing? And I've been thinking about it in the course of our conversation today, that the stuff that remains in the Bible that we want to explain away, it was a very hard thing to respond to say, yeah, well, we used to when we were, there were priests, but we don't now. It certainly creates a separation. And when explaining ourselves to those who simply read our book, it's difficult. It wasn't a stupid question on her behalf.
We have to end. So I'm not going to say what I was thinking. What I was thinking is your response would be to pick up a knife from your tray and say, yes, we still sacrifice. But I'm not going to say that because that would be rude, right? That's totally inappropriate. Rabbi doesn't say things like that. But I was thinking it. Oh God, for, once again, wouldn't that be a great weekend? As Reformed Jews, we have no trouble saying we are an ancient tradition and we have changed and grown and evolved, but the core values of Judaism have stood the test of time. And I believe that, and I believe that is powerful and true, but it can't be handled in a one-sentence conversation. It is complicated. Ladies and gentlemen, this was, wow, this was an excellent, your comments, great. I leave you in the good hands of Rabbi Fratello. Please do not enjoy yourselves next week. And I will be back with you on the 14th. And then, of course, we have the great conversation going on with regard to current events. Have a wonderful, wonderful, happy, good week. This was terrific. Thank you for today. Thank you very, very much. And Lorraine, Mazel Tov again. Okay.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Don't forget, you have to do Kaddish. Huh? You forgot to do Kaddish. You were so quick to get off.
We can do Kaddish without him.
Mention names if you have names to mention.
Yeah, and then we can all say Kaddish, I think.
We have 10 people?
Easily.
3, 6, 9, 10, I guess so.
9, yeah, 9.
Hmm?
I think 10 if we count both Mara and Harv, right?
We're here.
Yeah, we'll stay. So does anyone have anyone they wish to remember?
And do we as a group want to, as is often done, remember anyone else on behalf of the global community that we're thinking of at this time?
As well as the people in the Ukraine.
Yes, ongoing, of course.
Yes. And I would like to remember Irene Stein. And of course, we remember all those who have no one to say Kaddish for them.
Yes, also these.
Should we begin?
Yeah, I think that's good to work with, unless anyone thinks of more.
Yikadah v'yikadash shemei Rabbah Yama Divarach Harute Yamlich Malchute V'chayechon V'yomechon V'chaye Dechal Beit Yisrael Ba'agala Uvizman Kori V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam V'lomei Almaya Yitbarach Yishtabach Yitpa'ar Yitromam Yitnaseh Yithadar Yithalev Yithalal Shmei Kudishah Barichu Elam Minka Birchata V'shirata Tushbachata V'nechemata Damiran B'yama B'imru Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabbah Min Shemaya Chayim Aleinu V'Yakol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mroma Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'Yakol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
See you tomorrow, Howard.